Hello, my name is John Durrell. I'm Director of Admissions and Engineering at the University of Cambridge. Today I'd like to talk to you about engineering at Cambridge, the course and the application process. So firstly, what is engineering? Well, scientists investigate that which has already is. Engineers create that which has never been. So engineering is about taking scientific knowledge and applying it to solving practical challenges in our lives. So why choose engineering at Cambridge specifically? Well, engineering is distinctive in that we are one unified engineering department which covers the whole range of engineering subdisciplines with the exception of chemical engineering, which means we can offer a course which starts out broad, where you can study the full range of engineering and then specialise into a particular area of engineering later on in the course. One advantage of this is it means that you don't need to know right now what kind of engineer you want to be. You can sample the whole range of the discipline and make a decision later on once you're better informed about what the various areas of engineering involve. As you can see from the quote on the screen at the moment, it's actually the case that many people come to Cambridge thinking they'll be one kind of engineer and end up specialising in a different area, perhaps one they considered, or in some cases, a different area entirely. Because we're a combined department, we're the biggest department in the University of Cambridge. We are, by some measures, 11% of the entire university. We have lots of academic staff, 1,200 undergraduates, and set out on the screen is some demographic information about the gender balance among our undergraduates and the fact that we have a large proportion of undergraduates from outside the UK. We have almost 50 different nationalities represented among our undergraduates. So as I mentioned, we have a unique structure and we think this gives you great flexibility. Our graduates are more employable because they have this breadth of understanding of the full range of engineering. We have a world-class reputation for research and teaching and a long tradition of close partnerships with industry, in addition to comprehensive facilities, labs and libraries, and the high level of individualised student support intrinsic in the Cambridge way of teaching. So what does the course structure look like? In the first year, there's an integrated engineering course, which is followed by everybody. In the second year, most people can continue into another year of integrated engineering, but it is also possible at the end of the first year to transfer into the chemical engineering course. In the third year comes specialisation. Students can choose to take an exchange year, the details of which countries are available for exchange visits does vary from year to year, or it's possible to change into the manufacturing engineering tripos, which is a dedicated course concentrating on aspects of manufacturing engineering. Those who remain within the main department can choose to specialise into one, or in fact multiple areas of engineering, and carry that specialisation through the fourth year into graduating. Before I go on, I should just say that the advice I'm giving in this talk is subject to change due to the current pandemic, especially when it comes to details of the application process. I strongly recommend that you keep a close eye on the university's website for changes in the process to make sure that you're fully informed. So how does the admissions process work? Well, the first and most important thing is to choose a course. It's important to choose a course that you're going to be interested in. For example, many people say to me they're not sure whether they should choose natural sciences at Cambridge or physics at other institutions or engineering, because the requirements are very similar, strong maths and physics ability. The normal advice I'd give there is to think about whether you're more interested in taking scientific information and using it, or whether you're really interested in understanding where that scientific information comes from. It's true that in engineering, you have to take quite a lot of the outputs from sciences and use them without necessarily having the time to drill down into where those things come from. So if you find that too frustrating, then perhaps you might want to consider following science course rather than engineering. Once you've chosen a course, it's time to choose a college. Now there's lots more advice available on choosing a college, or you can make an open application. It really doesn't matter. If you make an open application to all colleges, once you're allocated to a specific college in the process, it isn't flagged that you didn't choose that college as the process goes forward. In terms of choosing a college, it's a good idea to take part in online activities because it's difficult to visit colleges at the moment, and get a sense of the facilities and the environment and the atmosphere. But don't worry about it too much. Every student I've ever talked to has told me that the best college in Cambridge is the one that they're currently at. Now, a very important deadline is if you want to apply to Cambridge, you need to get your UCAS application in by the 15th of October. This is a hard deadline, and if you miss it, you won't be able to apply to Cambridge. In previous years, we've then asked people to complete what's called a supplementary application questionnaire, which is a way to get more information about your application and the circumstances around your application. That exact process may be changing a little bit this year, so again, keep a close eye on our website for information. And all that needs to be submitted by mid-October 2021. And then for engineering, we have an admissions assessment, which is a multiple choice assessment, which I'll talk about more, which gives us extra information about about the progress in your academic work before we consider your application later on. We have an interview, which takes place in December. Last year, the interviews took place online because of the current pandemic. It's not yet clear what the interview process will look like for this year, but again, information will appear in due course on the website. And then you'll find out in early January whether you were successful or not in your application. So getting into choosing a college in more detail, there are lots of colleges that admit undergraduates to Reg Engineering, but watch out, 3 of these colleges only admit mature students, so those who are over 21 at admission, and 2 colleges currently only admit women, so that's Murray Edwards and Newnham. And as I mentioned, it's absolutely possible to make an open application as well. What about academic requirements? This is obviously key to a successful application. You must have maths and physics A-levels or their equivalent. That's an absolute requirement. If you want to study chemical engineering, you also need to have chemistry. And on the whole, colleges strongly prefer applicants to be studying science, maths, technology A-levels as part of the mix that they're offering. There is no advantage to doing 4 A-levels unless that 4th A-level is further maths. It is possible to combine maths A-level with some vocational qualifications. If that applies to you, I recommend that you make contact with the admissions office of the college you intend to apply to at a very, very early stage to discuss the exact contents of the course that you're following. And finally, A-level further maths is very, very strongly recommended indeed. So if you've not chosen A-level further maths at the start of your A-level course, maybe you should talk to your teachers about seeing if you could pick up AS level further maths in year 13. So typical offers in Cambridge, A-star, A-star A, or thereabouts. Although it's important to remember that admission is very competitive, and more than half our students who end up being successful and arriving at Cambridge have achieved 3 A-star or better. I've also put on the screen here equivalent requirements in a variety of different further education systems. If you're studying a course which is different from this, you should go onto our website where there's detailed information for lots of different countries on how we assess people coming from different education systems. But I think this just sums up that we're looking for very high academic ability, especially in maths, physics and further maths, because those are the underlying subjects for studying engineering. Our course relies on the people who arrive having that high achievement, so you need to be sure that you're going to enjoy a challenging education. To get through 4 years of an undergraduate course, you actually need to be interested in the subject as well, so you need to have a passion for engineering. And specifically for the Cambridge course, you need to have that interest in studying engineering more broadly before you specialise. So things that we're not interested in, while in your personal statement you should tell us about supercurricular activities you do outside your schoolwork, so those are things that are related to engineering but not necessarily part of your course, we are not interested in extracurricular activities. So being a head boy girl, sporting or musical achievement, those aren't things that we take into account when we decide who we're going to admit to university. That's not to say that our students don't have a very wide range of interests. and extracurricular activities. It's simply that this is not a basis on which we're selecting people. So a little bit more on the admissions assessment. It's called the ENGA, Engineering Admissions Assessment. It's been running for 6 years now, or it will be running for 6 years. You can go online, you can look at past papers. If you go onto the engineering department website, onto our online open day page, you'll find a very useful video from our open day in 2020 where a colleague of ours from Cambridge Assessment talks in detail about how those questions are put together and how we use them to assess you. So that assessment is set in early November 2021. It's absolutely essential you register in advance, and registration is made through the test centre, which in most cases is going to be your school or college. And you can find more details about the structure of the course and also the specification, which tells you what we're allowed to ask you about, on the prospector's website online. Now, interviews. There are lots of myths about interviews. The thing to remember is that our interview is primarily technical. We are interested in your academic ability for the course. Expect to be asked technical questions that go beyond what you've been taught in school. So we're going to ask you to put together what you've learned and to maybe stretch your knowledge and maybe learn something new in the interview. So you may well have to ask for help in the interview, and that's absolutely fine. It's a discussion of an interesting problem that pushes you beyond what you've been able to learn in school. If you're interested in the kind of problems that might come up at interview, there's an example of a web page here which talks about these kinds of interesting advanced problems. Things you shouldn't worry about at interview include what to wear. We really aren't judging you on your appearance in the interview. You may well be asked questions on relevant sections of your personal statement, so that's things that are related to engineering. But we're not trying to trip you up, we're not trying to mislead you, there are no hidden agendas. What we're aiming for in the interview is simply to establish your motivation and academic potential to study the engineering course at Cambridge. So the end of the admissions process, decision in early January. Before we announce decisions, we have a pool process which allows us to moderate across different colleges. So people who've just missed out on being accepted at their first choice college are placed in a pool where other colleges can consider their applications. So it can end up that you're made an offer in January from a college other than the one that you originally applied to. So if you'd like further information on this, you can go onto the department website, www.admissions.aim.cam.ac.uk. You could go on the university prospectus website where you can find out more information about ENGA and the admissions process. And you can email us in the engineering department at ugrad-admissions@eng.cam.ac.uk, where we'd be very happy to answer any specific questions about the course that you may have. Thank you very much for your attention.